Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for ETR's Macro Survey Findings webinar. As a reminder, each survey we conduct is accompanied by a comprehensive data findings report, and the entire survey and data visualization dashboards are currently available on the ETR platform. In addition, the ETR Insights team is continually hosting qualitative discussions with our ITDM community to provide end-user feedback and analysis around the enterprise technology trends that our data uncovers. Each interview is published with a full transcript, video replay, and executive summary, all of which feed our comprehensive and searchable ETR Insights library, also available on the ETR platform. ETR also has its own expert network populated with the ITDM decision makers in our community, which is quickly becoming a preferred provider for our savvy tech-focused clients. As always, you can reach out to us at service@etr.ai to request any of our proprietary research or to get started on your own custom projects and bespoke requests. And now on to the macro findings. ETR's macro survey consistently tracks and updates core trends like budget growth and spending priorities, but also quickly iterates the macro survey topics based on shifting priorities, technology trends, and most importantly, client feedback. So please keep the communication coming. We always love to hear your feedback and ideas. With that out of the way, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Eric Bradley, and I am joined today by my ETR Research Analyst colleagues, Dr. Darren Brabham and Jake Fabrizio, who will be joining me in the analysis on this call. Now, without further ado, let's kick off the October 2023 Macro Survey Data Findings. This survey period opened up in the first week of September and closed just a week ago. The survey captured participation from more than 1,700 IT decision makers, 25% of which hail from Global 2000 organizations. 60% of respondents held C-suite or director level titles, and we continue to thoughtfully organize our IT respondent community to represent a diverse cross-section of industry verticals. Although the high-budget sectors of IT telco, services consulting, and financials insurance combine for roughly half of the respondents, and are purposefully curated to capture large swaths of enterprise IT dollars. Lastly, the survey respondent breakdown by enterprise size is represented by roughly 2/3 large enterprise and 1/3 mid to small enterprise. And with the final survey tally completed, we see that IT spending estimates for this quarter were revised lower to 2%, ending a dismal 2023 calendar year at 2.9% year-over-year growth. On a more positive note, respondents are optimistic about 2024 spending, with the initial full-year growth expectations set at 3.8%. The first quarter of the calendar year will begin much like the current year is ending, however, with 2.8% growth expected for Q1. And here we take a closer look at which respondent subsamples in our survey have the most optimistic and pessimistic outlooks for IT spending. Focusing in on total 2023 estimates compared to total 2022 IT spend, we see that despite the aggregate revision lower, some respondent subsamples buck the trend. Specifically, large organizations continue the improved estimates that we captured 3 months ago, which is a hopeful sign that the bottom was hit in the first half of 2023, when the world's largest organizations exhibited the lowest spending intent. In this survey period, both the Fortune 500 and Global 2000 are exhibiting much higher growth from the prior survey, albeit off absurdly low levels. Still, this is another reason for potential optimism. For the second consecutive survey, retail consumer organizations indicated the largest improvement in full calendar year estimates. By industry, Most verticals have increased their spending estimates this time around as well, with the interest rate sensitive financials and insurance respondents revising their anticipated spend ever so slightly lower for now. And lastly, by region, North America showed a slight increase, and despite a revision lower, Latin American spending still leads the way. In the October macro survey, we get our first look at forward year spending intentions. Here, we review the total 2024 numbers, with the main takeaway being signs of improving spend among the world's largest organizations. Early expectations for 2024 spending growth are more than 50% higher among Fortune 500 and Global 2000 organizations than it was in 2023. With more nominal total dollars at play, small and mid-sized organizations are still ahead of their larger counterparts, anticipating 5.6% and 4.6% annual growth, respectively. By industry, again, retail and consumer leads the pack, but it is the impressive gains seen among IT telco and especially financials and insurance organizations that are most auspicious. And with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to my colleague, Jake.
Thanks, Eric. In this next question, we asked survey respondents what the primary method their organization plans to use to achieve a decrease in IT spending in 2023 quarter 4 versus 2002 quarter 4. Among those respondents that did indicate a decrease in spending for 2003 quarter 4, reducing staffing and delaying or stopping new projects were the top methods for budget cutting, both at 19%. Additionally, consolidating redundant vendors and reducing consulting and outsourcing grew in popularity as budget decrease methods. Meanwhile, reducing hardware and capex spending and reducing excess cloud resources were both cited as less popular methods for budget tightening compared to past surveys. Moving on, we can see that organizational change plans have largely stabilized over time, with data on staffing and new IT projects remaining fairly steady from last survey. Work from home is on a gradual decline, while return to office is inching higher. Staffing trends are rosier compared to 3 months ago, with layoffs dropping, hiring freezes thawing, and new hiring increasing slightly. Here, we asked respondents which technology trends their organization is prioritizing in the next 12 months. Zero Trust security is still the highest ranked priority among the slate of newer technology trends, followed by generative AI, which saw the largest increase as a priority from the April 2023 survey. Real-time streaming data analytics is the third highest priority among these newer trends. Natural language processing, which came in fourth, also saw a notable increase in prioritization since April. Edge computing has decreased as a priority, while blockchain, quantum computing, and metaverse continue to come at the low end of prioritization in this analysis. Now moving on to specific focus areas under the umbrella of information security. We can see that these priorities remain largely consistent with 6 months ago. Identity single sign-on and MFA, and vulnerability management and patching remain tied as the top priorities. EDR XDR, Zero Trust Network Access, and email security follow next in rank order, while web application security was ranked the lowest priority among information security topics. This analysis similarly shows focus areas of prioritization, but within analytics, BI, and big data. Business intelligence and reporting remain the top priority in analytics compared to 6 months ago. Data preparation and data transformation have increased as a priority, moving into the second highest slot in a tie with analytics and big data platforms. Finally, streaming analytics takes the spot as the lowest priority among the selected focus areas within analytics. That's it from me for now, as I pass the mic over to my smooth-talking colleague, Dr. Darren Brabham.
Generative AI and large language models are one of the hottest topics around, which really made its biggest splash in business with the public release of ChatGPT just a year ago. We were quick on the jump to start asking our respondents whether they were evaluating these technologies for any business use cases. In April 2023, 52% were not yet evaluating generative AI. Then in July, that number dropped to 34%, meaning two-thirds of organizations had evaluation plans underway. This time, the non-evaluators have shrunk again to just 26%, meaning three-quarters of organizations are now seriously exploring the potential for generative AI in their organizations. Of those evaluating the technology, customer support use cases are the most popular, followed closely by text and data summarization and code generation and documentation. Image editing and design is still the least popular use case organizations are evaluating generative AI for, but across all use cases, there has been growth in exploration. But how many organizations have now advanced from the evaluation stage of generative AI into full production? It seems generally less than half of those evaluating generative AI for a particular business use case are now into a production phase. Customer support is still the most widespread generative AI use case in production, followed by text and data summarization and code generation and documentation. And nearly a quarter of organizations who are evaluating generative AI have not yet moved any applications into production. So we wanted to understand what, if anything, is keeping these generative AI evaluations from moving into a production phase. Among those evaluating who have not yet moved into production, 83% said they were still just in the evaluation phase. And that makes enough sense. But what's more curious are the next most common answers here. Data privacy or security concerns and legal, compliance, or regulatory concerns were each cited by a third of respondents as reasons why generative AI hasn't moved into production mode in their organizations. Indeed, there are clearly some common anxieties in the business world about if and how to deploy generative AI in a safe, legal, and ethical way. Continuing on the generative AI and large language models theme, we wanted to know whether organizations would seek these technologies from the vendors who are developing them, such as OpenAI and its ChatGPT tool, or as embedded capabilities within a vendor's existing offerings, such as Microsoft or GitHub's Copilot or Salesforce's Einstein GPT, for instance. Compared to July, fewer organizations are unsure about their preference, which signals some growing knowledge about and confidence in the technology across organizations at least. Still, respondents are roughly evenly mixed between generative AI tools directly from the companies developing them versus embedded capabilities within existing broader vendor offerings. And finally, on this hot topic, there's the question of what technologies and activities organizations will prioritize most in their data and analytics pipelines to better support generative AI goals. Generative AI really is only as good as the data it pulls from, and so it's perhaps no surprise here that improving data quality is the top priority of organizations. Improving data warehousing, data lakes, databases, and storage arrays was the second highest priority by a considerable margin, and then all other data and analytics priorities clustered together at similar levels after that. Now let's turn back to Eric for the next topic in our webinar. Eric.
Thank you, Darren. Up next are a few slides that originated directly from client requests, but were further improved upon by our own analytics team. Take that as a reminder to keep the lines of communication with your service reps open and let us know what types of data and analysis you find valuable for future survey iterations. The ETR Analytics team created a sliding scale to see how individual vendors within their respective sectors would be impacted by shifting IT budgets. The underlying basis is to see how vendor net scores correlate with survey respondents planning negative, flat, or positive spend, with a focus on Q4 2023 versus Q4 2022. In these slides, we further break down the analysis by sectors, alphabetically, in which we track the vendors. We kick off with an observability vendor, where Datadog sees a notably lower spending intention among those respondents with flat or negative Q4 expectations, a potentially ominous sign for a vendor already operating in a crowded marketplace. Similarly, the once high-flying Snowflake is seeing potentially lower spending intentions among those with negative spend. Within the enterprise application sector, Workday and SAP find themselves in this rather inauspicious analysis for the second consecutive survey. with Workday's financial management tool seemingly most exposed to any downward changes. Next, we switch to the information security sector. Standouts in InfoSec include Microsoft, Datadog, Elastic, Qualys, and Dynatrace, a grouping that sees the largest disparity between positively spending respondents and negative spending ones. This could be a tailwind or headwind, depending on how the spending environment unfolds, but the data exhibits increased potential volatility among these vendors, more so than their information security peers. Wrapping up with this analysis, we see that the most recent data also captured some standout vendors in the productivity and video conferencing sectors, where Microsoft, Slack, and Zoom captured high relativity to varying spending inflections. Lastly, and likely not surprisingly, one area where we did not see much potential volatility was within the ML/AI sector, where the bands remained tightly range-bound in the varying spend groups. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to the charming incantations of Dr. Darren Brabham to wrap us up. Back to you, Darren.
And this concludes our October 2023 Macro Views webinar. ETR has 3 flagship surveys we conduct multiple times a year: the Technology Spending Intention Survey, the Emerging Technology Survey, and the Macro Views Survey, all powered by our thoroughly vetted and constantly growing ETR community of IT decision makers. We have interactive data visualizations, reports, and webinar replays from these surveys on our site. ETR also has a growing body of qualitative research from our ETR Insights interview series. These one-on-one and panel interviews with IT decision makers help tell the stories behind the data, and a searchable transcript library and associated analyst-written summaries are accessible through the reports marketplace. We also do custom surveys and focus group panels and interviews for organizations seeking best-in-class, bespoke research on enterprise IT topics. And lastly, don't forget, ETR has its own expert network service called ETR Connect, where you can conduct one-on-one calls with members from our IT decision maker community. Be on the lookout for sector and vendor-specific reports and the full TSIS findings webinar, where we discuss our vendor data sets of highest conviction. Following the TSIS webinar a week from today, all materials will be available on the ETR platform. Until next time, take care.